Hello and salam to everyone. I am Shamsuddin Hassan Shigari from Pakistan. I am
Thank you.
here.
So as sir mentioned, I did my undergraduate in psychology in London, and then I stayed there for my master's, which I also did in mental health sciences at King's College. And I've been here since I'm working in healthcare. So my question today is, what, in your opinion, are the causes of a negative perception of Islam in the West? And are there any efforts being made in the West by Muslim and both non-Muslim researchers to change this perception?
I mean, I think the reason is
Okay, so welcome to Pakistan, and it's a pleasure meeting you. My question to you is that so far, actually, if you look at human history, they have been, as humans, we've been expressing ourselves in either poetry or prose or free verse. But when we read Quran, we really don't see it has prose or poetry. At times it appears as poetry, but it's not poetry, it's not prose, it's not free verse. But with your vast experience and work, you've spent decades on it. So what do you think Quran is? How do you term Quran? Is it poetry? It's a book of poetry or book of prose, or what? Or it's something different?
I would like to know, what are your reasons for interest in Arabic literature and the Islamic studies? And then Islamic studies followed. The interest in the language led you to the Islamic studies then as well? So that is when your first encounter with the Arabic language. So you took it up just because it was a requirement at that time?
Yeah.
And then once you started studying it, the interest developed then? You felt that you found it?
Great to meet you again, Alexander. And a very interesting story you've shared so far about how you got connected to the Arabic language. And what that and how that led you into writing this book. So my question to you would be, what are some of the ancient and modern debates about the relationship between word and meaning?
Yeah.
I have a book titled Language Between God and the Poets. So could you just explain to us briefly what the main theme of this book is? Yeah, thank you. What, in your opinion, is deconstructionism? And related to the same question is, what do you think of its application in the reading and interpretation of the Holy Quran?
Connect this to one more thing. So when we look at religious text, and not only Islamic religious text, any religious text, obviously there's a lot of history behind in anyone's mind when they're reading religious text. And the level of understanding and background knowledge that someone would have would be very different between a religious person and a so-called non or a less religious person. So how should they then go about this in terms of trying to understand the meaning? Because without that background, which a religious person might have, so the meanings will totally change, right? Depending on what amount of background knowledge you have about that subject. And then in religion, it becomes even more difficult because obviously there's a lot of social norms that might exist. As someone grows up, you grow up listening to a lot of stuff, right? And there's social norms, there's history. So how does then one go about getting to that meaning?
Question would be, how do you view the Quran as a non-Muslim researcher in terms of literary text and answer to man's big questions?
So can I ask you a follow-on on that one? So in your view, and based on obviously all the teaching that you've been doing and all the research that you've been doing, where is the meaning? Is it in the text? Is it in the listener's mind? Or is it in the speaker's mind? Where do you think is the meaning, real meaning of what's being said?
Yeah. So
in that sense, I think the Quran has been deconstructed. I mean, if we don't apply that exact same term as Derrida does, but I mean, it has been interpreted differently, and it's been read very closely with hair-splitting debates and everything. And people have, come up with different understandings, different interpretations. So does that is that kind of the same thing, or it's not? I mean,
But sir, there's a major problem in Derrida theory. For example, when a man who is religious perspective, in the religion, the truth is objective, not subjective. But in the Derrida's theory, the truth will be subjective. It is not a big problem. And if we apply the theory of Derrida for reading holy text, it is not clash between
Yeah.
So what I'm trying to say here is that they have the scholars in the past, the imams of the past, the great scholars, jurists. They have kind of agreed to disagree as well, but that is something different, right? That's something different from deconstruction, right?
Yeah.
It's just different ways of looking at the
Just
text.
one last question. I don't think a conversation like this could be complete without me asking you this question. So you're teaching language and some religious texts, obviously, in there as well, in one of the top universities in the world. But the way I look at it, a lot of the educational system that exists today was designed for the industrial age in the 19th century, being taught by people who were born and trained in the 20th century. And they're trying to educate kids for the 21st century. That's a big problem. One of the top things that's a part of every conversation today is the modern technology in general and AI in particular, right? So in your view, now that you're part of one of the top universities, what do you think is the influence that this modern technology in general and AI in particular is going to have on this entire subject of understanding and interpreting Arabic texts and religious texts? And does that worry you as a teacher of these subjects?
We left this one out, but what are the causes of religious hatred in the West? Do you think? Doesn't man need spirituality and religion?
What was the second bit?
Doesn't man need spirituality and religion?
Yeah.